But anyway, you a bad person for saying you don't want more of this in your country? No, of course not. Of course not. You will be. You will be, however, in the eyes of apparently 100 quote-unquote women's rights groups. And I've got some troubling stats to go over. Okay, that one might be... I think I might need a bit of a nose hair trim. I might need a bit of a mustache trim as well. You might be in the eyes of 100 women's rights groups, quote-unquote, which say linking sex to migration is dangerous racist diversion. In a letter to Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, organisations including Rape Crisis England and Wales, the End Violence Against Women Coalition and Refuge called on ministers to stand up to the quote-unquote dangerous narrative. So, more than 100 women's rights groups, according to the Mirror, have warned racist attempts to link sexual violence with immigration are putting victims at risk. Kind of hard to make that case in the UK when you look at the ethnic makeup and the reasons behind the why so many young girls were raped and in some instances murdered as well. It's quite hard to make that case. But I've got a little bit more to go into about some of the women that are spearheading these organisations, as you can see why they'll say this in a moment. Rape Crisis England and Wales, the End Violence Against Women Coalition and Refuge are among the organisations warning anti-migrant groups and politicians are, quote, hijacking and, quote, survivors' trauma. I'd argue that they are doing the same. I would argue that they are doing the same to fuel more of the narratives that have prevented women from actually getting justice in a lot of these cases, right? They've signed a letter to Keir Starmer and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper warning that sexual abuse must not be used for political gain. Completely agree. That's why I actually don't like a lot of Reform MPs, particularly Nigel Farage, because he said that he was going to fund a private inquiry into the rape gangs. He did so because it was politically advantageous at the time. Then it seemed that he, it wasn't long after he brought Zaya Yousaf on, I believe, and all of a sudden then that disappeared and Nigel has made no claims since, or at least no effort since, to fund a private inquiry, despite his ex-colleague Rupert Lowe doing so to whole manner of support and hopefully success. And Nigel hasn't said anything about it. He hasn't even tried to draw attention to it. You think if he actually cared about that issue, he would put aside all political differences or personal differences, personal grievances with Rupert Lowe and sign on to the motion and voice his support for it, but he hasn't. He views this issue as a political football, which is why I really don't like him for that. And those who spread misinformation must be held to account. But let's have a look, for example, at the End Violence Against Women campaign. Done a little bit of sleuthing. So if you have a look at the End Violence Against Women campaign website, this is about the End Violence Against Women Coalition. We are a group of feminist organisations and experts from across the UK working to end violence against women and girls in all its forms. Made up of 163, now again, violence against women, you've got to think about what they mean when it says the violence against women. Anything you say that's in any way negative about women at all in these instances, these groups will try to screw as violence against women, especially if you happen to be a white male, right? Because you'll see a lot of these adopt the intersectionality framework and everything then has to be weaved in together in this leftist narrative, right? Anti-racism has to be weaved in. There'd be anti-colonialism weaved in there as well. There'd be the whole trans agenda weaved in there, which is why a lot of these groups, which you think are for women, they're also for men who masquerade as women as well, because these guys don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. Makes you think we have more of these groups than ever before, and we have more of another problem, which we talked about before, than ever before, but yet the problem seems to be getting worse and worse. We have more of these groups and coalitions than ever before, but the problem seems to be getting worse. Maybe, just maybe, they're going about it the wrong way. Made up of 163 specialist women support services, researchers, activists, survivors, and NGOs, we believe that violence against women is not inevitable and work to tear up the systems that enable it and build a fairer world in its place. You don't see a lot of these groups going on about the Islamically motivated grooming gangs and the ethno-religiously motivated grooming gangs. You don't see these groups going on about those. So, who are we? The End Violence Against Women Coalition was formed in 2005 by frontline support services, survivors and researchers because we are louder together. It's a classic Marxist organization taking an intersectional anti-racist approach. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, the air is not great in this room. We work to transform the political and social systems that enable violence against women. We drive social change through campaigning and shaping policy, and by challenging the wider cultural attitudes that tolerate and normalize this abuse. So you'd think that these people would, I hope at least, I don't know if they actually have, but I would hope that they would talk about the Yazidi sex abuse, for example, the Yazidi women that were kept as Sabiya and suffered horrific sexual abuse. The hands of ISIS, for example, I would imagine they would talk about that, even if they wouldn't mention the underlying motivations. But obviously, they can't really make the case for the anti-racism, the anti-racist narrative when you have about 85+% of victims being young white girls, and you have a good, 80%, 90%, even more in some cases. But take, for example, Operation Stovewood in Rotherham, where you had 63% of the cases were Pakistanis, right? Pakistanis, and they only made up about 2.5 to 4% of the population. That doesn't bode well for your anti-racist narrative, right? Again, it's all about oppressive structures. Oppressive structures. Our vision is a society where women and girls can live their lives free from violence and the threat of violence. So I'll put it this way, evil people are going to exist. Evil people are going to exist. But when you try to shape and shift everything around to say that only one group of people can be evil and the rest are all somehow oppressed, even though a large group of those that are quote unquote oppressed are doing the oppressing, all of a sudden you see why maybe they don't get the results that they're looking for. But shouldn't surprise you, this initiative is spearheaded pretty much completely by women. And I don't necessarily have anything against that because, a lot of the rape crisis centers, for example, they pretty much have to be staffed by women. Because if you've just been raped or been one of the girls that have been horrifically treated by rape gangs in this disgusting, sordid, drug den, basically, and you get rescued, say, and you get brought to one of these clinics, the last face you're going to want to see is a man, obviously. So you can fully appreciate that. But in this instance, it's the women again, and this is the biggest thing that I see. It's a lot of women, because of the lies that they've been sold by via feminism, are now doing these things against their own best interests. Against their own best interests. Because at least when men and women work together, we understand that men are the protectors. But when you remove men from their duty, in many instances, it's been women that have removed themselves from their own duty that caused men to remove themselves from theirs. That's why feminism is not just a women problem. Feminism brought out the worst in men and the worst in women, right? Because men, the best are brought out in men when they're fulfilling their role as the patriarch and the head of the family. And women are doing the best when they fulfill their role as the matriarch of the family. Because everything has to revolve around the family. It's the bedrock of society. You get the best out of both men and women when they understand that, I promise you. And that's why feminism has been such a destructive lie, because it took a constructive union and a procreative union and turned it against itself. Turned it against itself, made it a destructive union where both of these things, they've both become inverted. The responsibilities and duties have both become inverted. And then no surprise then when the one construct that was responsible for the entirety of society pretty much is inverted and destroyed, it's no surprise when society gets destroyed then as well. But you're going to have a look at one of the people on this board, for example. So let's have a look at Andrea Simon, for example, who's the director of this organization. Executive Director at End Violence Against Women Coalition, Andrea has worked in ending the violence against women and girls sector. Again, why is this a sector? The fact that we need a sector for this, right? We never needed a sector for this before. What changed? What changed? We'll go over that in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Since 2017, she was appointed as this campaign's director in January 2021 to lead the organization's influential work to improve responses to women and girls at risk of experiencing abuse. It's a UK-wide coalition of more than 150 women's organizations. Researchers and experts are working to end all forms of violence against women and girls. Here's the thing. I'm going to read this now. And again, I want you to think back to where this woman is based and maybe how these ideas have worked out in practice with some of the things that we talked about 1 or 2 episodes ago. Andrea brings an intersectional feminist and anti-racist approach to her work as a leading campaigner in this space. She is a member of the London Policing Board and co-chair of the London Violence Against Women and Girls Board at the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime. London. The place where currently, at least based on a headline, which obviously I saw a little while ago, it's probably worse now. there's a rape occurring every hour, or rape reported every hour in London. I think it's safe to say the intersectional and the intersectional feminist and anti-racist approach is not working. Everything has gotten worse. Every single thing has gotten worse. If you say that only one group, in particular white men, can be the oppressors, because that's what this is, it's a Marxist construct, so you have to have a manifestation of bourgeoisie and proletariat. If it's always that the white men or the bourgeoisie, the oppressors in this instance, you will ignore all manner of abuse and overlook all manner of different things to fit that narrative. You'll cook the books. You won't report certain things. You'll lie by omission, right? There's no surprise then when you don't get the outcomes that you're looking for, because you've deliberately decided that you're not going to follow up on certain things, or certain things cannot be true despite the fact that they are, because they do not fit into your framework. You then decide that it's reality that's wrong, not the framework. No, maybe it's your framework that's wrong. Another charity that's listed on this, a quote-unquote charity, I believe it is, quote-unquote organization that's listed on this is Quetzal, however you say it. I believe that it deals with, partly deals with child sexual abuse as well. But again, where is it? It was listed on here. Where did I have it? Is it here? Here you go. So I think this is from the same one. Oh no, this is from a different one, I believe it is. Or is this something else that they do? There's something known as Own My Life. Is it these guys that do this? I might be getting this slightly wrong, or it might be another group that is listed with. Yeah. Here we go. I think I've got it here somewhere. Here it is. Part of the Women's Liberation Collective. So again, that is straight out of. So I'm not going to go over Quetzal. I wanted to go over this because this is another one. This is another one that I wanted to have a look at, because all of these groups, the reason why they're not working, all of these groups, they're all coming from the same intersectional Marxist framework, and it's completely ignoring many avenues where the problems are coming from. Because yes, white men do abuse girls. Yes, of course they do. You do have rapes committed by white men. So absolutely. When you decide it's only committed by white men and only they can be the oppressors, and you ignore things like ethno-religious motivations from other groups, it's no surprise then when a bunch of criminals feel emboldened, because you're not going to pursue them purely for reasons of things like race and ethnicity or any other factors of the Equality Act, which is why I wanted to bring up this one, because the core values of another one of these groups, liberation and equality. Again, all of these terms that have been drastically taken out of their original context and made to mean things that are outright destructive to not only these people but society as a whole. You have this from their state. So this is from, as I said, the Women's Liberation Collective, I believe it's called, headed up by Natalie Collins, right? Women are oppressed by men and misogyny. Black people are oppressed by white people and white supremacy. Lesbian and gay people are oppressed by heterosexual ideals. Transgender people are oppressed by transphobia. And disabled people are oppressed by a society designed by and for able-bodied people. Despite the fact that those people, we make all sorts of accommodations for disabled people. Go to anywhere else in the world, go to some of the undeveloped world and see a wheelchair ramp for disabled users and stuff like that, and courtesy cars, potentially even for some people that have, in many ways, when you have a look at some people, eaten their way into so-called disability. But again, we won't talk about that. That's a conversation for another time. And yes, there are people that genuinely do need those things, right? Okay, my girlfriend's mother is one of them. Okay, so I fully understand that. But again, where it says here, when a women's rights group is campaigning on behalf of transgender or men, that tells you all of the absurdity you need to know and why these groups are not getting the results that they want. They're completely inverted. They're completely inverted because they can't even, they wouldn't even be able to define what a woman is. They wouldn't even be able to define what a woman is. Because again, you cannot do so inside of this leftist framework where everything is a social construct, even biological things are a social construct. You can't do it. So again, it just goes to show in many instances how silly and how stupid these people are. They don't even know that they don't even know how little they know. But these are the ones that are saying now that you shouldn't be linking immigration or migration with these people, with crime rather. And it's something that other women, luckily, do seem to notice, because this is something that came out of a Freedom of Information request, and David Atherton posted it, for statistics of rape in the Bournemouth area. And then what was her name? Sorry. Morgan from the Women's Safety Initiative, who I talked about before. She was the one that posted online about the KFC incident, where the young girls were being harassed by a group of foreign men who even went into the toilet, were banging on the toilet door, saying they didn't care that they were 16. They wanted to do absolutely horrendous things to them. When the girls tried to leave, the car came back around. They waited for them. They were basically stalking them, and the police did nothing. Rape statistics in the Bournemouth area. In 2011, you had 61 offences. You had 98 the year before. You had 61 in 2011. Right? And then in 2021, they rose to 362, which is nearly a 6-fold increase. It makes you think, what changed? By the way, from 2022 to 2023, it remained relatively stable at that point, 327 and 342. And then at the date of this request, I don't know when it was in 2024 that this was submitted, there was 28 recorded at that time. But if I flash this up on screen for you, you'll see that that would be very, very misleading. You'll think that something would have happened in 2024 that resulted in no rape offences being committed or whatever. It's just because it's at that date at that point, because you'll have a look on screen now, the violent offences were also down substantially. And as you notice, the violent offences have gone up in seemingly quite a linear fashion as well. So from 2010, you had 3,696 violent offences, but not including rape. And then in 2023, you had a top of 8,668 offences and 661 so far in that time frame in 2024. So truly, truly stark. It makes you think, what would have changed? What may have changed? During the same period, immigration grew by 262.4%. So forgive people for thinking that there may be a link. Correlation doesn't always equal causation, but we have so many examples that we can use now. This is just another one of them. That maybe the 100 women's, quote-unquote, women's rights groups may have it wrong. Maybe all of our political leaders have it wrong. They don't have it wrong for what they want to do. So obviously they're perfectly happy with all of this going on as long as they get the additional political power that comes with it. People like Julie James, the MS, saying the idea that we have uncontrolled mass migration is nonsense. The thousands you see in some instances coming across on the boats to Dover every single day is apparently nonsense, according to Julie James. But you've got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a mistake that a lot of people make. That they think, they see the videos of boats coming in at Dover, they think in Wales, if you live on the other end of Wales, it's not gonna affect you. You do forget, it seems, that we are landlocked together. Do you often forget that we are landlocked together, right? That we can't just, all of a sudden decide that we're going to move away from England and that they can't cross into our country anymore. That just because they're landing at Dover doesn't mean that within a day or within a couple of days that they could be in Cardiff or they could be in Swansea or they could be in all manner of, they could potentially be in the house next to you. Just in a couple of days, because the government evicted a single mother with 6 children and made room for, Abdullah and Ahmed and all of the others coming in on the boats, right? So yes, it is a massive problem, but our politicians will never say as such because they've campaigned on this multicultural diversity narrative for as long as they've been in office, and they need to keep to that because it's a religious dogma. They need to take it as the religious dogma that it is. They can't come out and admit that now, though, because I think, well, hang on, you made your career off of this for 20, 30, however many it was years, right? And now you're saying something different, but we've upended our entire society for this. We've upended our entire society for this. And you realize, oh, we were lied to. We were lied to by the feminists. We were lied to by the atheists. We were lied to by our politicians. We were lied to by everybody. But here is Julie James, for example, pretending that we don't have problems.
The idea that we currently have uncontrolled mass migration is frankly nonsense. It's an extremely racist narrative, and actually all it does is hamper our work to encourage victims to come forward, as does actually stigmatizing people who don't come through the proper immigration routes. And the idea that we currently have uncontrolled mass migration is frankly nonsense. The level of immigration here in Wales is tiny, as we've had, as I've had previous experience of debating with this particular member.
So again, just outright denying this problem. If you have a problem, easiest way to get around it, just outright deny it. Just outright deny it. Not only that, where she mentions again, where these politicians are showing exactly where their eggs, what basket their eggs are in, where their bread's being buttered, is the fact that you say, we stigmatize people that come into the country. Was it unconventional? Stigmatizing people who don't come through the proper immigration routes. Stigmatizing people that don't follow the law. Oh, yeah, don't stigmatize people that don't follow the law, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, you see that person shoplifting brand new Yeezys or whatever, or going in and taking a bunch of stuff off the Tesco shelf. Oh, don't stigmatize them for not following the proper procedure with checkout, right? Don't stigmatize them for not following the proper procedure, right? You see somebody that's running naked through the streets or walking naked through the streets, or, having a Johnny Quango in a bush, right, as kids are walking past. Oh, don't stigmatize him for not understanding proper social custom, right? The guy who was nude on the tube a couple of episodes ago, where we talked about now the police are going to arrest the quote-unquote vigilantes, right? You shouldn't stigmatize. Now, there should be things that are stigmatized. There should absolutely be things that are stigmatized. It's the fact that we don't stigmatize certain things anymore that's led to the downfall of society, right? Because there are strict things that cause society to be able to function, right? The family being the main one. Family and faith. 2 F's, if you will. Fortissimo. Fortissimo. That's a music joke if you get that one. But those are the things that were the bedrock of society, or are the bedrock of society. They'll never not be the bedrock of society, let's face that. And everything's being done to weaken those institutions and to weaken those constructs, if you will. Because, nothing is sacred anymore. Nothing is sacred anymore because you can't stigmatize. So you hear politicians talking like this, ladies and gentlemen. And it's good when, in many instances, the evil just seems to manifest in how they look. Understand, they're not on your side. They're not acting in your best interest. They'll lie to your face. They'll piss on you and tell you that it's raining. And you just need to maybe make yourself a little bit uncomfortable in order to see the truth, so to speak. To see the truth, because they're not acting in your best interests as much as they will try and convince you that they are.